webinar because this is going to be really fantastic. First of all, today's webinar, just like all of our webinars, is being recorded. And so within a few days, you're going to receive an email with a link to view the recordings and to look at the slides again in case you want to review any of the information presented today, or if you want to share that link with your colleagues. They're not able to attend. I know a few people mentioned that they were going to do that earlier this week to me. So that's great. We definitely encourage that. We are not going to make this webinar public for a few weeks. So only you folks are going to get the link to view this. So share it with whoever you want. Second, keep your eye out for information concerning a 3-part webinar series that we will be conducting in October focused on analytics and SEO. We are putting the final touches and planning for the webinar right now, and information is going to be available over the next week or so. And finally, during today's webinar, you can use the chat feature and the questions feature to ask us questions. We'll save about 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. And if for any reason we don't get to your question, Donna and I are going to follow up with an answer on the mStoner blog within a couple of days. You can also join Donna and myself in the Twitter back channel or tweet us questions. And the hashtag we're using today is hashtag mStonerNow. So I'm hearing from a few folks that the audio is a little choppy. If that continues to be an issue, please keep letting us know. I'm continuing to readjust my microphone as I go here, and I apologize for that. Luckily, though, Donna is going to be doing most of the talking today, so we won't have to worry about that too much. So let's get started here. I've sort of introduced myself already. My name is Mallory Wood. I'm the Director of Marketing at mStoner, and I'm responsible for mStoner's marketing and business development efforts. I also work with clients to develop social media strategies, and I manage our site EdUniverse and Higher Ed Live. Prior to working at mStoner, I was at St. Michael's College as an Assistant Director of Marketing and the college's social media strategist. There, I developed and executed a social media strategy for St. Mike's. I created and managed content for various social networks. I managed online student ambassadors, and I produced web video. I should also, at this point, tell you, and I don't have a slide, but I should because she's oh so adorable, but my puppy is joining us today. Her name is Lucy, and she is wonderful. On Twitter, we've got a bet going whether or not she is going to bark during today's webinar. Now, in my opinion, if she barks, it only means we have just said something worth writing down. So we'll see, you know, we'll keep count at the end. If you want to join in on the betting on Twitter, feel free. But we'll see what happens. Now, Donna, let's flip this over to you. Can you introduce yourself and share your background and experiences?
Sure. I'm Donna Talarico from Elizabethtown College, where I am Director of Integrated Communications. And what that title means is I just wear a lot of hats. So I'm part of the Office of Marketing and Communications, and I handle the official college social media channels, also do some of the creative and copywriting for our print, web, and electronic marketing materials, and also work with web content development and strategy with our other Director of Web and New Media. And then most recently, I took over as editor of the college alumni magazine and a brand new news website that we actually just launched yesterday. So that's me in a nutshell. Glad to be here.
Awesome, and we are glad that you are here. So let's get the back channel started right away. If you're tweeting, I hope you will tweet this. It's not about us, it's about the audience we want to reach. Susan Evans, one of mStoner's senior strategists, shared this tweet on a recent mStoner webinar, and I have to agree that this is one of the ultimate truths of communications. We need to think like our audiences. And that's important whether or not you're doing marketing, recruitment, fundraising, admissions, communications, you name it. And the beautiful thing is this message works for every platform. So while this sounds really simple, our project teams, when we're working with clients, we often have to remind them that when it comes to messaging or our design or our website, you name it, it isn't about us. It's about the target audience. And focusing on the audience has never been more important or more challenging as the mediums for our messages change. And we all know that those mediums change really frequently now. The number of places that we hit people with marketing messages these days is growing a lot faster than the number of eyeballs that can take them in. Our audiences are becoming and choosing to become increasingly fragmented. This is another tweetable moment. So what is integrated marketing? We're going to be sharing this amazing case study with you for the majority of this webinar, but we need to all get on the same page with what integrated marketing actually is. And I have seen a lot of definitions about integrated marketing, but I like this one from @DuctTapeTheBest. Integrated marketing is the combination of marketing tactics to help deliver one marketing strategy and more quickly build know, like, and trust. Consistency across our online and offline channels is key because it ensures that our audiences understand the messages that we are sending. Our goal should be to create a seamless experience for our audience and present them with a similar tone and style that reinforces our institutional brand's core messages. We achieve this by having a marketing strategy that blends online and offline tools and tactics. And so, of course, different mediums have different strengths, right? We know that, you know, when we tweet, we use hashtags, we are limited to 140 characters. You know, that's not necessarily true on Facebook, although they've certainly picked up on the hashtag thing more frequently and more recently. But different mediums continue to have different strengths and different audiences. So if we can take advantage of the strengths of both an online marketing and a traditional marketing strategy, we're going to better position the institution that we work at for greater success. So, for example, you might create an email marketing campaign that is in conjunction with a direct mail campaign to advertise your upcoming alumni event. And you may also create a Facebook event to promote it socially. You're not going to hit everyone everywhere. The person who signs up on Facebook may throw away the print mail that you send them. But what you do when you integrate your marketing and use a number of different channels is you increase your chances of hitting them in at least one place. So I think the takeaway is that we can't do anything in isolation anymore. Social, print, web, etc. We can't do that in isolation, and we can't separate any one of those channels or mediums from our broader communications and brand strategy. Let's take another tweetable moment. This goes back to the point I made about consistency a few slides ago. Consistency is key. Our channels need to tell a consistent story and mutually reinforce each other. So as marketing and communication professionals, I really believe that this job rests on our shoulders. Michael Stoner, the president of mStoner, wrote a blog post that I've shared the link to you on this slide. It is mStoner's first law of branding, or in shortened mFLOB. Once you identify your institutions and messages and stories, he wrote, you will want to incorporate them into the important channels of communication and interaction for your institution. And so if you can be disciplined about that, you will be effective. But it's not as easy. Of course, it's not as easy as it sounds. It never is. But the more disciplined you are, the more effective you're going to be. And he wrote, call it integrated marketing, if you will, but it really is about connecting everything in a systematic way everywhere. So today, we're going to focus on a recent admissions campaign from Elizabethtown College, which I assume is why all of you have registered and are attending this session, because this is a really great case study and a really great campaign, and it's called the Share Your Moment campaign. So Donna, I'm going to turn this over to you for a few slides.
Okay, sure. So during this webinar, we're going to talk about, how we came up with the idea for the Share Your Moment campaign, how it worked for us, and how some of these examples might apply to you and your unique institution, because I know there are people from all different types and sizes and regions of schools. So I hope there's definitely some takeaways here for everybody. So, but before we get into that, I have a little confession to make. And so it kind of goes back to a stat that I recently read, I think in the Chronicle of Higher Education. But basically it says that 82% of accepted students want to interact with the college that they've been accepted to. So this tells us that after they get that acceptance letter, they still want to continue to hear from the college. But I just had this anecdote from my own history that I thought I would share. When I was in high school, growing up in the Pocono Mountains in Northeast Pennsylvania, I was addicted to calling my local radio station. And I just loved when I could request a song, and then they would send it out to Donna in Blakesley, Pennsylvania, and I would just be so excited. Sometimes I would actually record it with a tape so I could hear it again. But, I eventually won my high school a rock concert and then ended up working in radio for a number of years, some of the best years of my life, actually. But once I got into working in e-commerce and social media, I realized that radio isn't too far off from social media. And I like to say that the @mention is the new radio shout out. So I just think that by engaging with your accepted students or anybody in social media, it's kind of that feeling of hearing your name on the radio. So, so that's that.
That is that. So Donna, why don't we set the stage for our attendees today? We're going to be talking about the Share Your Moment campaign at Elizabethtown College. This was a campaign around mailing out the acceptance packet to students. Now, I think there's a few pieces of information that we need to get from you. And so the first is, at Elizabethtown, how are decisions traditionally delivered to students?
Yes, so right now, our admissions decisions are mailed to students in a traditional manner. So they're not posted online. They can't get the results ahead of time. They have to wait for that envelope to come in the mail.
Okay, and has your central communications office, which I know that's the office you work for, has that office and the admissions office always played well together? I know that this can be a challenge at a lot of institutions, and that's probably something that some of our attendees, face.
Well, that's a loaded question when you're broadcasting live out to all these people. But in all seriousness, so our office is, I keep saying new, but it's still relatively new. Up until about 3 years ago, Elizabethtown was using an outside agency, and they had an internal communications staff. But for the past about 2.5, 3 years, we've brought creative services in-house. We have a whole new team of people. So we're doing things a little differently. So in that case, we're still getting there with them, since they were used to just sending what they wanted to an ad agency. So right now, we like to use the word revolutionizing what we're doing. So we're working hard to do things differently, push them into taking some risks here and there. And as you'll see later in this webinar, that we've had great results so far on the things that we could push for.
So up on the screen right now, we've got some images of your recently redesigned view book, which since I've had the luxury of having this conversation with you already, I know that your admissions acceptance campaign came out of this original redesigned view book. So can you tell our attendees where the moment concept originated in the idea, Share Your Moment?
Sure, absolutely. So to get there, I just have to tell you a little bit about how the concept for the view book came out. So as I just mentioned, at the time our first design of this view book came out, it was our first big project with admissions. So we wanted to do something really different, really cool, that still breathes Elizabethtown College and our mission and everything that's important to us. So we went with the define and redefine theme. So you can see on the left-hand cover there, it says Elizabethtown defined, and it's a black and white-ish type picture. But then when you open it up, we say that it's Elizabethtown redefined, kind of a use of a die cut there. And then our website component, which was an integrated campaign, we had a matching website. You can see on the bottom image there that the colors also changed when you moused over to get a definition. So then, for the front of the book, we defined words like classroom with what their traditional dictionary definition would be. Then you would turn a page and it would say not all classrooms have four walls, and then we would have a student tell a story. So it wasn't any marketing voice. These were actual little vignettes from student interviews, and that one's about mock trial. So at the back of the book, we still had to have a place to list all of the majors and things about financial aid and our location. So a way to fit in those stories, we came up with the idea to call them defining moments, and they're in the outer margins. So the defining moments kind of played with the location. So that defining moment was about a lecture series that we have with the M&M Mars factory, which, by the way, we get to smell chocolate almost every day from this factory. So that's kind of where the moment came into play.
So after you've redesigned the view book, you've told me that your next goal was to redesign your acceptance packet, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So how did you approach that project? You know, what did your brainstorming process look like?
Sure, we meet usually bi-weekly, but during bigger projects like this, we meet weekly with what we call the ACT team, the Admissions Communications team. And so we met to brainstorm about this, and we had redesigned the view book, made it really fun to open with some unique folds. We had grommets and die cuts in there. So we thought if we're investing, you know, to make this look great, we should also make the acceptance packet look great. And so our creative director, Wendy, who's just a genius, said, you know, we should do something really special with this admissions packet. Let's make it a moment. So we came up with the moment of truth, which would also be a defining moment in that student's life. So we really wanted to focus on that personal attention and a testament to how students would feel once they arrived on campus. So we thought, since getting accepted to a college, and perhaps your dream college, would be such a huge, important moment, that we would invite students to also share that moment. So that's kind of where we went, and it took some time to figure out the exact way we wanted to put it together and figure out what we were going to include, but the nugget of the idea was there pretty much from the beginning.
That's awesome. So what is it like if I'm one of those accepted students and I am getting the package in the mail with my acceptance letter? What am I going to experience?
Well, the first thing you're probably going to do is probably decide that you are going to go to Elizabethtown College because it's such a cool acceptance packet.
Clearly.
No, but what we thought of, and if anybody reads about Steve Jobs and the whole philosophy behind the way Apple products are packaged, and I don't know that we made that connection right away, but when you open something that's important to you, you want to make an experience out of it. And it's just when you open up something that you couldn't wait to get, or your first smartphone, or your first laptop. So we just wanted the whole opening it process to be an experience. So, and it's a little hard to show through pictures, but the back image that says the moment of truth, that's what you would first see. And then you would flip it up, and then that would be the second image there where it says, congratulations, your moment is now. We're honored and excited to, you know, offer you acceptance. And in that area where it's just that gold color, we would actually have the personal acceptance letter in there. And then it opens on the sides too. So one will have important information, the other with a pretty campus shot. But then in the very middle would be share your moment. So this is where we encourage people to, right there in the heat of the moment where they're excited, to share that moment, to tweet out that they've been accepted to Elizabethtown College using a hashtag. And then we also invite them to join the Elizabethtown College Accepted Students Facebook group, which is an admissions initiative. So our office doesn't handle that, but we also promote it there. So that was kind of the feeling and the process of what we were hoping that would happen when people opened it. And once we started to accept students, if you look at this is the kind of thing that we started seeing. And, you know, there wasn't just somebody tweeting that they got accepted, but this girl took a bunch of pictures and probably took that selfie a couple times till she got it just right. But she made this collage and she shared it on Twitter and Instagram, and we just continued to see them come in. And I would retweet them and favorite them, or personally congratulate the students, well, on behalf of the college account. And then, like I said in the opening about the radio shout out, students would then retweet or favorite the reply that we gave them. And you can see, you know, some more of the pictures that came in and some of just the tweets without a picture. I'm so happy right now, accepted into my top choice college. You know, another girl singing happy, happy, joy, joy. And so it was just really such a wonderful, validating thing to see people so excited to be accepted. And I did create a Storify for all of the Share Your Moment activity that I was able to see on Twitter and Instagram. And then every so often I would share that with the audience through social media and ask people if they haven't shared their moment yet to continue to share.
That's awesome. You know, I've been checking in on the back channel over the last couple slides as you've been sharing, you know, what this looked like and the reactions, and, you know, folks seem to really feel like, you know, this was well thought out. So kudos, Donna, to you and your team for having such a well thought out start to finish. Erica Fields tweeted, I'm always a sucker for printed materials, but they really thought about the accepted students start to finish. And, you know, I can't agree more with her. And Lindsay Labarge said that she loves the moment of truth text on your acceptance packets. So, so really awesome integration here. And Meg Costello actually just tweeted that as I was saying. That was some awesome integration. She and I were on the same page today. I like that. So, you know, talking about, that's actually a perfect lead-in, Meg Costello. It's like you read our mind. Talking about integration, you know, I set the stage for this with some information around integrated marketing. So, Donna, how does the integrated marketing component of this campaign make it really special?
I mean, first and foremost with this campaign, it was just so personal. We got to share in that joy and that moment. And, you know, I know that not everybody who shared their moment ended up coming to Elizabethtown, since this was just for the accepted students, but it was really engaging, and it provided students a next step, you know, so now they could go on social media and share it with their friends, you know, and the whole design of the acceptance packet really encouraged that. But I think it was just far more engaging than sending a letter in the envelope or sending an email to click on to see your admission status. And just to go back a step, at the time, eTown was really trying to focus on you and getting students to complete the admissions process, or maybe they've been accepted but they haven't been to campus yet. We're one of those campuses, and I'm sure a lot of people out there can agree, but once you get your students to campus, sometimes it's a sell. They're going to come. So a lot of times the people have been accepted, they haven't been on campus yet. So this kind of is an extra touch to make them see how much we care about them as individuals and get them to come for a visit and ultimately deposit it. So, so this really enforced and the goal of trying to increase yield. But then it also makes you think a little bit about, with all the technology we have, and a lot of times we decide, okay, well, maybe we can replace an email with this postcard, or so maybe there's some things that, special things like this, that just are more powerful when they remain in print. So it kind of makes you think of what do you integrate and what aspects do you and do you not.
And so specifically for admissions communications, why was the integrated approach for this particular campaign important, and any other general comments you might have?
Sure, and I think I accidentally jumped ahead and answered some of this with the last question, but one of the things I didn't point out was that we have an accepted students website now that we started, which provides next steps to prospective or accepted students and their families, such as how to visit campus, how to pay your deposit, how to sign up for the next open house. So basically, it drives people online to complete those next steps, those goals that we already had in mind. So you can't necessarily click on the application, or on the acceptance letter, but we're telling them how to get online. And then also it drove people to social media, and it was just a complete experience. Print, social, and web were working together, and maybe throw in some of those personal touches between the admissions counselors and things like that. And I think it's just, you have to build your whole content strategy around communicating with accepted students, and you have to think from the beginning on all those components. So we actually didn't advertise the accepted students website on the acceptance packet this year. So it's in it for the one we're sending out this fall. So that was one thing that we learned. But everything should have a next step. You hear a lot about that with the web. What do they do next? Do they deposit? Do they apply? Do they, so that's kind of the approach we took. So even though it's fun, compelling stuff, we want to drive people forward in that process.
So before we move into talking about results, Randall has asked if you wouldn't mind tweeting out the Storify link. That would be awesome. And also, for those of you who aren't on Twitter, we will make sure we include the Storify link that Donna mentioned in our follow-up blog post. So we will definitely make sure you get that. And so, Donna, don't feel like you got to tweet it right now, but after the webinar, if you want to make a note to do that, and then we'll definitely include it in the blog post. And then also, I've got a question, and I hope I'm saying this right, Callie, and maybe Kaylee or Callie. This lovely lady would like to know, when seeing tweets from accepted students, do you verify their acceptance with the admissions office before retweeting or favoriting them?
No, I haven't done that. I figure if they have the acceptance packet, it's in the mail and it's pretty legit. But however, for the accepted students Facebook group, that is spearheaded and moderated by admissions, and that's a closed group. So for that, yes, they have to request to join the group, and they go through and verify that. So for the Facebook side of this campaign, they do only allow in accepted students.
Yeah, I'm thinking
I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I think it does. And I'm thinking about, personally, I have a sister who just started Skidmore College, and she, is very active on social media. And when she was accepted to colleges, she would be tweeting them and stuff. And, she wasn't denied from any institutions, but I imagine if she had been, she probably wouldn't have tweeted to those colleges pretending that she did get accepted. And I think, psychologically for a few reasons, if she had been denied, she probably would have been disappointed. And so she's not going to continue to engage with that particular college on social media if she's a little disappointed that she wasn't accepted there. But also, a lot of her friends follow her on Twitter, and if she started tweeting that she was accepted somewhere, it might be a bit embarrassing in real life if they were to find out that she wasn't. So I'm thinking that students probably self-moderate there. And so I'm curious, though, if that's been an issue at other people's institutions, that folks who haven't been accepted start tweeting that they have been. And I'd love to hear from you folks who are attending this webinar through the questions chat feature or on Twitter, let us know if you've run into that issue, because I've just, I guess I haven't heard of it before, so that's interesting.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it either, and like you said, Mallory, with the kind of the self-policing, but I think people are pretty, we're more authentic and we're more honest now that social media is out there. So if that happened on a one-off basis, that's probably the only time it would really happen.
All right, well, let's move into results. I see that there's been a few more questions. I'm going to save those questions for a little bit later in the webinar. So let's talk about results, both quantitative and qualitative.
Sure. So I think, we set out one of the goals of admissions during the last cycle was to increase yield, and we were able to do that. The Share Your Moment campaign definitely played a part in that, and so we had a higher yield this year. It went up to 20.5%, and last year it was 19.6%. So that wasn't as far as a jump, but in 2011, our yield was only 13%. So, our VP of enrollment definitely attributes some of this growth to social. We've also had our second largest incoming class in history since 2009, which was 543 students this year. Last year, we had 508. So we had a pretty big jump in students that, that deposited and ultimately showed up. And, oh yeah, the slide that Mallory just put up this one just gave me the warm and fuzzies. I feel like I know a nice amount of kids from eTown 2017 at this point, and that making friends won't be too hard. So this was even before summer orientation. So this was just, the hashtag really gained momentum, and we're going to talk about that a little later. But this just shows you that not only did it help us achieve our goals, but it got this class really building relationships between each other. So
I just threw the slide up, Donna, that addresses the yield that you were talking about as well.
Oh, great. Okay. So yeah, and out of all of the, we had 176, maybe a little more, accepted students share their moment on Twitter or Instagram. So I think it's important to point out, as we all know, we can't see everything with protected accounts. And if people don't use the hashtag or don't use, like they might have shared their acceptance packet but not mentioned eTown College, Elizabethtown College. So I have a ton of different searches out there to try and find everything. So of what I could find was 176, and that's about 7% of the accepted students. And then the hashtag just grew immensely. People never stopped using it. Oh, and I also should point out, this isn't in the slide, but it's in my notes, the number of our accepted students in the Facebook group, that went up to 285 from 244 last year. So admissions has a little more, of a handle on those numbers, but I was able to get those numbers from them. And then, just some more results here about the campaign. Yeah, so we already went through the yield, but then the inquiries to applications, that also went up, and I think that also had a lot to do with just the integrated approach with the view book and a lot of the things that we're doing. But people that have inquired actually moved into the applicant process, and that number just went up every year, which was really great. And with our first year report that our director of admissions did, the quality of our students went up, so the people that are inquiring are more qualified, if that makes sense. So we're getting the students that we want in bigger numbers. So I think that's all as far as the stats that I have. Oh yeah, and I guess also just showing that we use the eTown Move-In hashtag, and then throughout summer orientation and move-in day when the students are returning, we just continue to see a tremendous amount of camaraderie between these students. And we could really see them, the class, gelling together in real time. And my director actually was talking to the dean of students and said, you know, this class, I can't remember this class being this tight-knit already this soon. And I don't want to like toot the social media horn, but I really think that the hashtag, and they were in contact all, you know, for almost a year before they even set foot back on campus.
Well, anybody keeping count, the dog just barked once. So apparently, hashtag #eTownMoveIn is really something that she's interested in. So I'm going to have to ask you a follow-up question. How did you publicize this hashtag? Because obviously, you could publicize the eTown 2017 when you sent out the acceptance packet. But how did you get the word out about this one?
Just by, you know, we figure if they're sharing it on social media, that's where they are. So we would, you know, by continuing to tweet and retweet the people that were sharing, it just kind of reinforced that that one was the correct one to use by sharing the Storify link. So all of that just helped. But it's kind of funny because I had a typo when I was trying to do a search on Instagram, and I just put eTown 17 instead of 2017. So I was able to find some others that were just kind of hanging out there that I hadn't seen before. So even though I promote the one official hashtag, sometimes I'll just search for what I think people might do. And then maybe if I tweet back to them, use the correct one.
So on Twitter, Ed wants to know if you had to deal with any negative tweets or negative or inappropriate pictures using, you know, either hashtag.
That's a really good question. And sometimes I might reply to their tweet if there's something, well, to give you an example, somebody used the C words, and I retweeted it, and somebody from our admissions department didn't think that was appropriate. I actually had removed, it when I retweeted it, but since you can view the conversation, you could just see that the student said, no, I'm sorry, it was the S word. So I took it as somebody's excited and they're using that as like a exclamation. But so that was one example where I did what I thought was right, but got a little pushback. But in the end, it's a Twitter feed, it's going to get pushed down. But on the Storify, where we're archiving it, I did not pull that one over. You know, I mean, I really believe that inauthenticity on social media, but if it's going to be on our channel, maybe I wouldn't pull over someone that says, holy F, I got accepted to college. So even though it's really exciting, maybe not the best to pull over.
Right, right. Well, I think that makes sense. Let's move into sharing some advice, because you learned things as you did this the first time. You know, what advice would you give to marketing communication professionals who are looking to implement a similar campaign this coming year at their institution?
Sure. I think the first thing, you know, since we're talking about integrated campaigns, you definitely want to think of all angles beforehand. So this was actually the second year we used this design of the acceptance packet, but the first one we didn't have the Twitter hashtag on there. So we can see the world of difference it made to put that in for the second time. And now that we're going into it for our third cycle, we're going to also add the accepted student web address, which is we made a short URL for it. So it's, I think, etown.edu/accepted. So that way they can go online right away and get those next steps. So I would just think big picture, how do we move everybody through the funnel, and how can these various pieces of the campaign fit? And I think what Michael's quote you used at the beginning, to be consistent and mutually reinforce each other, is super important. So while the view book and our acceptance packet didn't exactly match, they were both really compelling pieces with different folds. And we didn't use them in examples here, but our scholarship, our merit scholarship offers were in a very similar package. And a lot of the other communication between when they were accepted and deposited also kind of had that same look and feel. So we really had a cohesive suite of admissions materials. And then any email communication that we did, we also mimicked that design. So, so I think this year we're just going to be more aggressive in asking them to share. So I don't think it hurts to ask people.
I agree with that. There's been a lot of social media related studies that I've read where it basically says if you want people to do something on social media, you have to ask them. So on Facebook, if you want people to share your post or to like your post, ask them to do it. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to add a piece of advice as well, based on what I've learned during my time at mStoner. I think that if a communication professional is looking to implement a similar campaign for this coming year, it's really important to start thinking about that and to start building the strategy now. Because so often, I deal with, at mStoner, I receive all of our RFPs and all of the requests that our, institutions or our clients send to us to work on new projects. And I can't tell you how often, we'll see an RFP for a print project that is really focused on impacting the incoming class, but that RFP doesn't go out until June or July, when the reality is you should have those print pieces ready to go in June or July versus just starting to think about what you're going to do for the fall a few months beforehand. So there's no harm in planning ahead, right? You can never plan too much, and starting to think about strategy and how your communications throughout the year are going to be consistent. That planning will hopefully has already started, but if it hasn't, it probably starts at about 3:15 p.m. Eastern time on August 29th. So that would be my advice. Do you have any other advice, or are you ready for my next question?
I think I'm ready for your next question.
All right. So my next question is around building trust. How did this project help further build trust between your office, your communications office, and your admissions office? Because at the beginning of this webinar, I asked you if they played well together, and you said that was a loaded question. So I'm wondering if this project impacted that relationship positively.
I do think that, just the success of this campaign and what I did throughout, when I, like the first image of the girl with her mouth open and really excited, I would periodically send screenshots of those to the admissions team to let them know how this is impacting the students and how excited they are. And I really think showing them those emotional and enthusiastic photos really showed the firsthand power of social media and would get them to think bigger picture, how all different pieces in the admissions suite of materials can talk to each other. From the view book to this, there was a common thread. And I think in the past, they were more focused on each piece as an individual. So I think where we really helped them was to help them, just put everything together and think big picture, kind of with the example you were just used. So I think it really validated that our department and our team and our expert talent, up in alcohol, we really know what we're talking about. And I think, we still have a little ways to go with some of the things that we would like to do, but I think that this was a great campaign that all it really was adding a line of text into something we were already doing. So I don't want to say it was a small thing, but it was a small change to one printed material, but seeing what it did, I think definitely validates it.
So what are you going to do differently next year?
Well, now that we've went through it one time and we have results, we can set goals. Last year, we didn't really set goals ahead of time because we weren't sure what to expect. I probably would have said, I want half of all accepted students to tweet their acceptance, and that probably wouldn't have been realistic, and I would have been disappointed to find out that we only had 7%. So now we can set a benchmark and say, okay, well, we want to increase that by 10%. So, maybe my goal for next year will be 200 or so students to do that. So we can, raise the number of hashtags that was used. And I can't speak on the admissions goals, but maybe we can work with them and find out what percentages they would like to raise, and then really follow up on those and work together to meet them. A lot of times the admissions numbers are shared with others on campus kind of as an after the fact, but I think we would like to be part of the process the whole year to kind of see where we can do better and see if we can change anything along the way. Another big goal for me is to get the admissions counselors on Twitter and to work as themselves on the Facebook page, because right now they hide behind a mascot. And I'm just really trying to push that students want to hear from a real person, and it can be an admissions representative. I mean, they want to hear most often from a current student or maybe from the college, but I think we need to get some more of our personalities on campus to take part in campaigns like Share Your Moment. I mean, they work great the way they are, but I would love to see more personal involvement from the people that work one-on-one with these students.
Those are some pretty awesome goals. Now, you're talking a lot about working with the admissions office throughout this entire campaign. What advice would you give someone who works at an institution where the admissions office is not so willing to buy into this idea of a fully integrated campaign, or really any ideas around integrating social and print and the web so quickly?
Sure. I think this is something, I used to work at an e-commerce firm too, where we built online stores and design them. And so I think you get this anywhere where you have a creative team and a client. There's always going to be varying opinions. And so I sometimes wish that I could just get "trust me" tattooed across my head. But I might not get asked to do a web, well, this is recorded. I mean, it's not a webcam, but I don't know. I might not get invited to speak anywhere if I have that tattoo. So the other thought I learned is that, even as creative professionals, we were hired for a reason, for an expertise. Maybe there was a gap in the organization and they needed help. So I think, first of all, we just have to remember that there's some goals. Maybe we're there charged with changing something, whether it's increasing numbers, increasing donations to the college. No matter what it is, we can't go with the status quo anymore, because it's what, why we're there and what we're doing to change it. Now, if things are still going great and you're hitting goals, but you're doing things more old school, just imagine how your results could go through the roof if you change things up a little bit. So one of the things that I've learned is sometimes certain clients or individuals need outside validation. So I not to plug an mStoner book on an mStoner webinar, but Social Work has a great example of some really unique campaigns, some that might have been a little risky to just show. So even if you have an original idea for something, maybe look out there and find some other schools that have done something of a similar tone or style or level of risk. So if a similar institution is doing it, that could help get buy-in. Take back, look through your conference takeaway arsenal, as I like to call it. See what other people are doing, and sometimes you just need that, well, so-and-so is doing it, and then sometimes you get more agreement. I don't know why that happens, but sometimes third-party validation really does help. And I think I just had one other, testing campaign. I think one of the biggest struggles that we have is, and I would love it if anybody has any resources out there about this, but the writing. We think so much about design and delivery channels, but the written message is something that I've been working really hard. The view book we did was really fun, but we're kind of getting back into, sometimes we're trying to be too approachable yet professional rather than being more academic and cold. So a recent example of we proposed is that we could do A/B testing on 2 email messages, but our office didn't want to double the work, so we suggested that marketing writes one and the client writes the other, and then we'll test them. Well, we ended up compromising on this particular message, maybe because there wasn't enough time for them to write their part. But ultimately, I think we really would like to test that messaging and to see, what works well for students. So that was more of a goal, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that your points around trust me are so important. That sometimes institutions internally don't trust the folks that they've hired to do the work. And again, this is coming from me working at a consulting firm, but we hear that a lot from our clients, that sometimes, as you pointed out, third-party validation of stuff you're already saying is the only way other folks will actually trust. And I just wish that wasn't necessarily the case. The communications professionals and other professionals at the institution, they were hired for a reason. And so, so I think that's a point that really hits home with a lot of people. Now, I saw on Twitter that Oakton Community College is wondering if a campaign like this would work for a community college. And I think the answer is, a campaign like this, this campaign, the Share Your Moment campaign, worked at Elizabethtown College. Why? Because they know and understand their audience, because they took the time to really think strategically about the integration of different channels, how their audiences are using those channels, and thinking about the ways that they've traditionally sent out acceptances and how to enhance that with more integration. So I think that, the answer to that question is a campaign like this can probably work anywhere, but you can't simply replicate it, because this campaign was created so beautifully and specifically for eTown that I'm hoping that a key takeaway for our attendees is that thinking strategically about their communications and their audiences, and thinking about how they deliver acceptances and how their audiences like to consume information will allow them to take this really great example and tailor it to their institution. So, I know that's not a really specific yes or no answer, Oakton, but that's the answer I got for you. So let's wrap up this webinar before we move into some Q&A. Let's wrap up our slide portion. Let's look at the big picture with eTown's social following. Donna, do you want to run through some stats and some of your impressions?
Sure. I think, with doing campaigns like Share Your Moment, I mean, this was a big campaign that we did, but it was really done in tandem with the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, really being out there in the social sphere with our students. But over time, we found, and I forget the exact, this was almost an academic year, I think, the statistics that I'm showing here, but our social media growth, it grew through the roof. We almost doubled our Twitter following. We had 1,300 new Facebook likes during the last academic year. These numbers are as of June, so it exploded this summer with the new incoming students. But we found that our average post reaches about 1,900 people, about 26 people on average interact with us. And one of the Twitter stats I found through Scroll Social was that we have a good balance between conversation and update. So we actually have more conversations than updates, which shows that we do interact well with our audience. So what we also found out, and going back to the whole goal and strategy behind the integrated campaign, we want people, for the most part, there are some fun and entertainment things that we do, and building, sorry, my earbuds fell out, doing general relationship building things, but we were able to show that our social audience is more loyal than our main web audience as far as clicking on links and taking action like registering for events. So the time on site increased 126% from last year. So that was for people who came to our site through Twitter or Facebook. They're staying longer on our site, about 6 minutes. I think the average is about 3 minutes. So our social audience is loyal and more engaging. A 20% increase in visitors, or in repeat visitors from Facebook. and 358% from Twitter. That's huge, but we also had almost doubled our Twitter audience in this time. So we have repeat visitors. So people that find us through social media visit us more often. Mobile traffic is up on Facebook by 256%, and Twitter referrals, again, are up but through the roof. And I think that the mobile traffic from Facebook is really important too. People are checking their emails, and they're checking, you know, their Facebook and Twitter from their phones. So, you know, we spend a lot of time and effort in making these great Twitter backgrounds, but you can't really see them on the phone. But also with email, if email is going to be a big part of your admissions campaign, you want to make sure that people can open them on their phones and that they look the same as they, not look the same, but the user interaction is the same as they are on the screen. So I think these stats I just wanted to share is by doing something like Share Your Moment, but coupling it with other things throughout the year and having a strategy behind your social media and a person or people dedicated to it, you can get to see these huge increases too.
Jillian Cornwall on Twitter said, remember importance of measurement with communication pieces, including social focus group analytics, .. hashtag measuring results. I love that. And I think it's so important, you know, that we do measure our results so we know when things have worked. I want to go back to the point around community colleges or other institutions who may not have acceptance letters, because I'm seeing on Twitter a few folks are tweeting about that, where, you know, on Elizabethtown, you do have a traditional mailing. We did a webinar, I would say probably 6 or so months ago, and the link's on our YouTube channel, which is just youtube.com/mStoner Inc. I'll make sure I tweet this link out in a little bit, but we did a webinar with Bruce Floyd, who works at the University of Florida, around their acceptance day and how they made it a social event. And at University of Florida, they also do not have acceptance letters. Their accepted students have to go online to learn whether or not they're accepted. And so that's why we did this webinar with Donna at Elizabethtown, because she has a traditional mailing, and that one with the University of Florida was an example where, you know, it's all online. And so now we've got 2 webinars and 2 really great examples and case studies around no matter how you deliver decisions, you can make it a social and integrated experience. So I'll make sure that we tweet out a link to that webinar in case some of you folks missed that and are in the boat where you don't have a traditional mailing. So we're going to move into some questions, and we've got a whole load of them in the GoToWebinar, and I'm sure that some of you on Twitter have some more questions, so feel free to send those in. Julie asks, well, she points out that she works at an institution and they have a small shop, and so they can't be in every social media space. So they stick to what they know, or at least think their incoming students are using. However, she also points out that each incoming class has, you know, the latest social media platform. There are some students on that latest social media platform, but not everybody is. So Donna, how do you decide which platforms to use or to add into your mix? You know, and do you have any tips on when to add a new platform and how to manage it? You know, whose responsibility does that become?
Yeah, well, when I first started, I think I was one of those people that wanted to jump on everything as soon as it came out, but I don't think you want to dilute your audience. So I don't believe that you have to be on every social channel that's out there just because it exists. So our fastest growing audience really is on Twitter, but also on Instagram. And then Facebook is really just the old faithful. It's there. People are still interacting with it, but it's not new and shiny anymore. So it's kind of just there. But it's still very important to us, especially more along the lines of alumni and parents who seem to interact with us more. So I think it just depends on the specific campaign that you're doing. So for this campaign, since we wanted people to just quickly share their moment and we wanted to be able to see it, we didn't want to use Facebook for it because Facebook is pretty private. So Twitter and Instagram, you have more of a chance of that being public and sharing it. So that's why Twitter and Instagram were really integral to the Share Your Moment campaign. For college-wide, I'm reading that Tumblr is being used a lot more. So I went and reserved Tumblr and Google Plus for the college just so we have them. And I'm just going to keep a watch out to see if students on our campus are talking about them, if they're using them. And I think that's how I inform all of my decisions, just are people in our community using them. I don't want to create something and force people to follow something that might be new to them. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what I heard you say is essentially we identified our goals. For example, we wanted people to share their moment, and then we identified the tools to use which would support those goals. For example, Twitter and Instagram. So something that I tend to focus on a lot in webinars or presentations I make at conferences is that identifying goals first is a really important step before determining which tools you want to use. So that's a tweetable moment, goals before tools. Let's stay on the social media related questions for just a minute. Amy is asking, how do you handle the accepted students Facebook page when the fall semester begins? Do you morph it into the class of 2017 or whatever the class happens to be? Do you rename it? Do you hand control over, from admissions to student life? How do you handle that?
Sure. I'm going to answer this question the best that I can since I'm not the one that manages it. But I believe what we do at eTown is, and it's confusing because they name it eTown Accepted Students in 2013. So even though they're the class of 2017, it's the accepted students, the students that are accepted in 2013 or in 2014. So they create a new group each year, and they can't close you cannot close a private group until every member leaves. So there's kind of a lot of groups that are just floating out there. So what Kate, who's in charge of this, does, she tries to drive everybody, once school starts, okay, hey, now you're part of the whole community, and then give links to the main college Facebook page and to try and move students into the main official college channels.
All right, thank you for that answer.
Yeah,
so our next question comes from Carolyn. She's wondering how many people are on your team and what their different roles are. And she asked how many people are on your integrated marketing team, but I'm going to expand the question. I'm curious how many people are on your communications team in your office, and then how many people, would you say is maybe on a committee, or how many folks do you work with when you're doing a campaign like this that does integrate a lot of different channels and offices?
Sure. So the Office of Marketing and Communications at Elizabethtown, we have an executive director, and then we have a director of creative services, a director of web and new media, and a director of integrated communications, which is me. The four of us are also on the admissions communications team that meets with admissions on a regular basis. Then the others in our team, we just actually got to hire a new graphic designer, and we have a marketing assistant now, which is also a new hire. And then we have a communications manager, who also works with me more on the media relations and the writing and magazine type things. So that's our office. Now we also have a director of athletic communication and an assistant, but they don't work in our building, but they're still part of our team. So then from the admissions communications team, or ACT, it's the VP of enrollment, the director of admissions, an assistant director of admissions who is also charged with the social media from the admissions standpoint, and then just the office assistant who kind of organizes and keeps the ship together. So there's four of us from each team that's part of the ACT group.
So our last question, oh, go ahead, Donna.
Oh no, I just wanted to make sure I answered all of the questions.
Yeah, I think I did. So I think that covers it pretty well. We actually had a few questions related to the size of your team, and so I think that you covered a lot of those questions that some other folks had asked too. So today's last question, and before we do the last question, I just want to remind everyone that there's a very short survey when you log out of the webinar, and it is so important that we get your feedback. It's so valuable to us. It helps us determine future webinar topics, and it gives Donna and myself a sense of how we did today and if the webinar met your expectations. And I always say this, but we will only be able to provide you folks with better webinars if you take the 2 minutes to fill out that survey, and that feedback is just so valuable. So I'm going to thank you in advance for doing that. So today's last question. We've gotten a few questions around Google Plus on Twitter, and if Donna, you feel like Google Plus is an important place to be connecting with high school students, do you think it's become more important now that there's the carousel in Google search? What are your thoughts on Google Plus as a tool to reach prospective or accepted students?
To be honest, Google Plus isn't an area that I've really ventured into. When it first came out, I wanted to familiarize myself with it from a personal standpoint, but I'm just on Twitter all the time and on Facebook all the time that I just kind of forget about it. So I'm going to look a little bit more into it and see if it's something that might be of value to our office. But as of right now, I don't have a concrete answer for you. I do know that other schools are using it, so maybe if they're listening now or they're seeing the hashtag, maybe some other people could help chime in, and that would help me as well. So I'm not sure that there's value there yet, but it is Google, and they're taking over the world, so I think we should pay attention at least.
Absolutely. I agree it's worth paying attention, and I think that Google Plus has a lot of really great benefits for an institution-wide presence, just like your institution probably has a Facebook page. I think having a Google Plus page for your institution makes a lot of sense, especially because we know that in Google's algorithm, somewhere they're weighting the social aspects into their search engine optimization. And, they're definitely weighting their own Google Plus in there. And we don't know exactly what it is, but we know that it's weighted somehow. So if for no other reason than maybe some SEO, I think that it's worth at the institution level being there. Now, I agree with you, Donna. Sometimes I forget about Google Plus, and if we didn't use it internally at mStoner, I probably wouldn't log into it very much personally. But I also don't believe a lot of high school students are on Google Plus, and I always use my sister as an example, but she's my living, breathing 18-year-old just student, and she, I was asking her about Google Plus recently, and because we were talking about Google Hangouts, and she was like, "What is that? I don't even know what that is." And she's super social media savvy, so I haven't seen statistics that prove that high school students are on Google Plus. So I guess until I do see that, my opinion is that there's other social networks, particularly Twitter and Instagram, that we know the audience, the high school audience is flocking to right now. And so putting time and effort, especially if you're at a small shop, into some of those other social networks probably makes a lot of sense. So we will definitely think a little bit more about Google Plus and get back to you folks if we have or find any sort of interest, and we'll post that information on the mStoner blog. So I think that is about it. We've addressed most questions, and I see that we're about 11 minutes over 3. So for those of you who have stuck with us this long, absolutely appreciate it, and really thank you so much for attending today. Don't forget to join us in October for our 3-part analytics series. We're really excited about that, and we'll see you hopefully in October. But for now, thanks again. And if you have any questions afterwards that you're like, shoot, I wish I would have asked something, you just tweet us at Donna Talarico, at Mallory Wood, or you can, shoot us an email, mallory.wood@mstoner.com. I'll make sure that I get any questions you might have. So thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate you being here today. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.